Welcome to another episode of Culture of Value. I'm your host, Troy Scheer with Binary Automotive Solutions and Binary Marketing Solutions. And today we're going to talk about, we've got a guest who is an author. So we're going to talk about his book a little bit. And I think I will show here how to sell. I'm back. How to sell more cars. It's Terry Lancaster, and we're going to talk about this because I've actually had a chance to read it, and that's one of the things that I wanted to get on and kind of give a preview, so we could push this and get some folks reading this because it's a super easy read, a lot of information, and it's like literally if you sit down and put an hour into it, you should be able to get through it and get something out of it. So then, I went back and read a little bit more, and you do that kind of thing. But this is some good stuff here, some really basic, simple stuff. So Terry, thank you for being a guest with us, and I'm going to just let you give a little bit of background information about yourself, and then we'll start talking about the book and some of the things that you've got in here because I love it. Some of the things are so in this high tech world are so low tech that I think sometimes people will really appreciate that.
Thanks, Troy, man. I appreciate you having me on. An hour to read. I had a dealer call me 2-3 Saturdays ago. He calls me on Saturday afternoon, says, Terry, I'm mad at you. He said, I got through my Saturday morning sales meeting, and you'd sent me a copy of the book. It's sitting on my desk. I picked it up after my Saturday meeting and lost an hour of my life because I dove into it and didn't stop. That's it. It's exactly an hour read, and I wanted to be simple, to be easy, to be applicable, that people would actually pick it up, actually read it, and actually do the things that we talked about. And the first part of the book is a secret. So, Troy, I'm going to let you in on the secret, and everybody watching, just don't tell anybody. I've never sold a car in my life. Never. I've been in the car business since I was 19 years old. On the marketing side, advertising side, started working in radio, worked in radio for years. Then I started an advertising agency that did nothing but work with car dealerships. From Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan to Miami, Florida, we produced radio and TV spots and newspaper and direct mail, and did everything dealers needed to do back then to sell more cars. And the world kind of shifted. The world has shifted, especially the car business over the last handful of years, last decade or so. The internet has come along and turned the car business upside down and on its head. It turned every car buyer into a lead. It's like that. You remember that movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, where they're arguing about the good leads, and you got the people from the home office, and they're going to send the good leads. And all of a sudden, all we wanted to talk about in the car business was where are the leads, who's got the leads, how much do the leads cost, what's your conversion ratio on the leads, and everything boiled down to leads. And that's the whole concept of the book, that leads don't buy cars. My friend Keith Shuttley says that all the time. Leads don't buy that cars. People buy cars, and you have to treat people like people. So the book is about learning to deal with the other 98% of the market who aren't in the market right now.
And what's interesting about what you just said there, and talking in my mind, talking about where technology has come along and how it's quote unquote turned the auto industry on its head. But with all of the technology that's come along, it's really now all of a sudden we're realizing, like you said, it's about people. It's about relationships and all of those kind of things. And what do we do? How to build those relationships. And all of the technology does is just help facilitate that. You've got to have the things that you're talking about in this book, and some of these simple little things that you do to help drive those relationships into people. It's not so much of, like you said, just checking leads and doing all those kind of things. It's how do you create that relationship with people?
It's funny because like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago, I was walking into car dealerships in across the state of Mississippi, because that's where I was working at the time. And I walked into a car dealership, and all the salespeople, they had these little green recipe boxes on their desk. I used to have one sitting around here somewhere. I don't. You remember those little green recipe boxes with the index cards on them? If they were super fancy, they had the Rolodex.
Right.
But that card box just had all their contacts. It had the people they know, and they lived out of that box. They had all been selling cars for a long time, and they had built the relationships. They knew everybody. They were the prototypical, backslapping salespeople. They were everybody's best friend. and they had a card to remind them when their birthday was and when their anniversary was and when they were last time they were in for an oil change was. And the people who were successful then, that's what they were doing. And the people who are super successful now, that's what they're still doing. I've spent the last 4 years interviewing all of the top salespeople in the country, the Ali Reidas and the Frank Cornettis, and these guys, and they're not sitting at their desk checking leads. They're not waiting for cars.com to send them their customers. Their customers come in the door asking for them because their people know they got a friend in the car business. So the technology and the tools have changed. Here's my Rolodex. Here's my Rolodex right here, and I got thousands of people in it. And people who will just step back and just quit trying to focus on that low-hanging fruit, those leads that are walking in the door, calling on the phone, sending the text right now. I mean, you got to work those, sure, but that leaves out 98% of the market. And every single human being, I don't know about you, I haven't traveled outside the country much, but every single human being I've ever met is a car buyer. You know, unless you live in Manhattan, you're a car buyer, right? I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and you got to have a car here. Everybody's a car buyer.
Dallas, Fort Worth. It's like if you don't have it here,
everybody's a car buyer. So why do you what's so super special about these leads that you want to spend your entire day working with them? I mean, they're just people.
You know, and it's something else that you brought up too, talking about the birthdays and, you know, those kind of things. It's like with technology now, with your Facebooks and LinkedIns and all of those kind of things, you get a reminder on a daily basis of your contacts and when they have birthdays or if they've got a new job or all. So it's like if you're just proactive, and I think, you know, that's what you're saying there. It's be proactive. Don't sit and wait and, okay, well, the ad department put out the stuff and I'm going to sit here and wait and hope somebody puts something on my desk. It's you've really got to start getting out and being, and it kind of talks, you know, into your first challenge about, I was just looking here, you know, you got the way the book is laid out, you've got ideas and thoughts, and then you have challenges at the end to say, okay, now here's some action steps you can take or some challenges for yourself. And the very first one is tell somebody.
Tell somebody, right? Every single human being I know is a car buyer. So if I sold cars, why don't I make sure that every single human being I know knows that I sell cars? Knows what I do for a living, knows where I work, and knows how I can help them. And I had this conversation with general managers all the time because a lot of times I'll go in for a training session and I'll ask, hey, what do you guys do? What do you guys do for fun? What do you do after work? How do you socialize? And for 99% of the car salespeople I talk to, the answer is I work bell to bell. I go home, drink a beer, eat a TV dinner, watch a little bit of sports on TV, and I go to sleep and do it all again. And I look at the general manager, dealer principal, and go, that's a problem. If the people in your life don't have an active, engaged social life with an active, engaged social circle, that's a problem. So make sure the first step is understanding that everybody's a car buyer. Everybody you know is a car buyer. And the only reason they shouldn't buy from you is because you didn't ask them and you didn't even bother to tell them where you work.
I could not agree more. You know, it's interesting that you say that. I think that, you know, what I've found here over the last 20 plus years in terms of getting new clients and all the things that I've done when, you know, we had our own marketing firm at one point before I came to work here at Binary, and you really accomplish a whole lot more in terms of developing those relationships that lead to clients outside of work.
Oh, 100%.
And it's like, you know, that's one of the things that I've found, and it's interesting that, you know, sometimes you just have to kind of force yourself to do it. But that's one of the first things I do in the morning. I look at my Facebook and my LinkedIn and see what's going on. And it's like you start developing those relationships and people know you and then they engage with you. And now all of a sudden, that because of the fact that you actually have shown some interest in them, now they're showing interest back in you and go, well, how can I help you? What can I do? And, you know, from a car salesman standpoint, salesman, saleswoman, it's if you can get that where people are going, well, gosh, they've done so much for me and are really engaged with me. Now I want to return the favor and at least give them the opportunity to be my, you know, the person to help me buy my next car.
And it's not only that. So, everybody I know is a car buyer. But here's the amazing thing. Everybody that they know is a car buyer too. So yeah, I want to be in their life, and I want to help them buy a car when they get ready to buy a car. I want to help them to trade in their car when they need to trade in the car. But every one of those people that I know, on average, they've got 250, 300 friends on Facebook. If they're in sales, they've got thousands of friends on Facebook. But for the average person, 250, 300 friends. And if you start engaging with people in their lives, having conversations, just wake up in the morning and click, Bobby Sue got a new dog. Hey, congrats on the new dog, Bobby Sue. Boom, your name shows up in her timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees it and she goes, "Oh yeah, there's my friend Terry. He sells cars over at Bob Chevrolet." It's just a little neuron firing. But all of her friends also see it. And if she happens to have bought the car from you and you start having a conversation about the car, then all of her friends are going to see it. And if you're good friends with her, she's going to refer her friends and her family to you. And when she buys a car from you, then cars come in twos, because if she buys a car, somebody in her life is going to want a car pretty quick thereafter. So they're going to ask, "Hey, where'd you get that car? How'd you get it? How was the deal? How'd they treat you?" And if you treat them right and they remember your name, which is 90% of the battle, because a year after people bought their car, 90% of them can't remember the name of the person they bought it from. If you just clear that hurdle, then you're going to get the referrals and the reviews and the repeat business from the 98% of the market that you don't get when you're sitting at your desk clicking all the stuff in the CRM, that all the tasks that you've got to do. You're checking it off.
Exactly. And the key is something that you mentioned there. It's, what you were talking about is, it wasn't, hey, get on somebody else's Facebook page or whatever and start selling them.
Yeah.
It was talk about them, engage with them, start that conversation, be doing the things that develop your I would say your personal brand. But it's, if all you're doing is trying to sell and do the hard sell and do all that kind of thing, which is what you're generally trying to do with the leads that come in, because now you're in that sales mode of, okay, we got to close this lead because we've paid for it and those kind of things, where when it's just those relationships that you have with people, number one, you haven't had to pay to generate that. It's just your time and effort. So it's like those are the things to me that are so important. Is it's that personal touch. And like I said, it's just using technology to create that. You still have to have the personal touch with people. You can't just be on there doing the same things that you've done forever and ever with the hard sell and just trying to push metal. You've got to be able to create a way to connect with people.
You mentioned personal brand, and I get a little frustrated because so everyone sees the Facebook and the first thing they want to do is, I'm going to jump on here and do this. I'm going to do walkarounds and I'm going to do live videos and I'm going to tell people to come on down. And I've got this many cars and we're having the big 72-hour mega monster blowout sale this weekend only. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And people get confused over what the idea of personal brand is. They'll do that and they'll wear the specific color tie, or they got a specific color shoes that they wear, or they go get a fancy logo designed. And your personal brand ain't got nothing to do with any of that. Your personal brand is just what your grandmother would have called your reputation. It's just what people think about you. It's just the idea that exists of you in their head.
And all those other things, all that they're going to do is just create a little reminder when they see it. It's a reminder of who you are. But if you don't establish that, as you said, your reputation and who you are as a person, and all of that other stuff doesn't matter. Because if it's just like, it becomes a shtick then, and not something that's really supporting who you are from a genuine perspective.
And so that's it. It's who you are. And if all you are is the guy who shows up on Facebook 10 times a day trying to get me to come buy a car, then you ain't my friend. And eventually I'm going to start ignoring you. Facebook is going to figure out that I'm ignoring you, and then their algorithm is going to bury it. And you're going to be talking to an empty room, because that's not what it's about. The best example, this is old school, from 10 years ago, a book about a guy by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk. Jab, jab, jab.
Oh, yes.
Jab, 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 right hook. And this is the simplest thing to remember when it comes to social media. And I use Facebook when I mean social media. I say Facebook because it's the 800-pound gorilla. It's the biggest. It's the biggest. It's got the most reach. It's got the most interaction, the most engaging. And then to top things off, it owns number 2, Instagram. So Facebook is social media for this at this point in time. And if all you're doing is going on there talking about cars, then that's who you are. So jab, 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 right hook says, hey, let's go on and let's talk about my new dog. Hey, let's talk about my new bowling scores. Let's talk about what's actually going on in my life, just like I was at a cocktail party. I don't walk in handing out business cards and, hey, what will it take to get you in a new car today at a cocktail party? We're going to actually have conversations about, our favorite sports team, about what our kids are doing, about politics, whatever it is that people want to talk about. Talk about those things. Jab, jab, jab. Carry on real live conversations, and that's kind of softening up. In boxing, they call it tenderizing the meat. You got to bing, bing, bing. You got to tenderize the meat, and then every once in a while, step back and throw the big haymaker, baby. Ask for the order. Tell them what you do for a living, so that they can't forget they got a friend in the car business. But that's what it is. They're a friend who's in the car business, not some car guy who's on Facebook.
He's trying to sell them something.
Right.
Well, and what you said there, it's key. And this is a couple of things I've, heard in some other conversations I've had, when we talk about this is social media, not selling media.
Yeah, 100%.
So the whole thing is to be social. And in that same vein, it was like, like you said, provide value to what you're doing. Maybe it's just something as simple as, hey, I'm going to get on today and tell you what some of the best hey, if you're looking for a great pizza in this area, man, this is the place to go. And here's why. And you give people value and information and all of those things. Then when it comes time, they'll come to you. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't ask, which is kind of the next thing that we're going to talk about is ask somebody. But if you've established that relationship with people, they'll start asking you when the time is right as well.
That's right, because you're in their life. You're right there.
So that's was a perfect segue in terms of, like you said, making sure that I am somebody who's in the car business, that it is okay to set out and ask for some business once in a while. So let's talk about that and kind of the process of it, so that, like you said, we're not just constantly asking for business, but when is the right time and what's the best way to do that?
Well, but let's step back. Before we even go to that, the second part of the book is ask somebody. Yeah. But the first thing you ask isn't, do you want to buy a car today? The first thing I want them to ask is, will you be my friend? Like kindergarten, please be my friend. Check yes or no. Do you like me? Because I see everybody in the world talking about, you got to make 10 videos a day. You got to post your inventory. You got to do an inventory walk around. You've got to do delivery pictures. You've got to do all of this, and you've got to create the content. You got to get this steady stream. You got to get your name out there. But they forget the most important step is that before any of that to do any good, you have to have some connections. The first thing you have to do is you have to connect, because if you're doing all that, you've got 175 friends. Well, your mama already knows you sell cars, right? Mm-hmm. So what good does that do? You got the first thing I want you to do is ask everybody to be your friend. So first thing, make sure everybody in your life knows you're in the car business. Step number 2, get more people in your life, and specifically add them on Facebook. If everybody on your kids' football team, add them on Facebook. Especially everybody that you talk to at the car dealership, everybody who buys a car from you, everybody who comes in and doesn't buy a car from you, everybody who you talk to in the service department. Just send them a little friend request on Facebook. Now they may accept it, they may not. But if you're in sales and you're worried about somebody saying no, you're probably in the wrong line of work anyway. Exactly. So go ahead and ask everybody to be your friend, so that you can start the conversation. You've got to build up these connections. And Facebook is the world's greatest CRM. CRM, customer relationship manager, right? You've got and just like your sales manager is going to tell you, you got to get that name in the CRM or it don't count. That's going to be somebody else's deal if it's not in the CRM. Everyone you talk to, put them in your CRM, put them in Facebook, so that Facebook's going to remind you when their birthday is. Facebook's going to remind you when their kid graduates from high school. Facebook's going to let you know that their kid had a soccer game and won this weekend and they had a good time, or they were on vacation. And it gives you a chance to get involved in more conversations. But for any of that to happen, you got to have the connection. Ask for the connection.
Well, and I think something there too that you pointed out is when you have that connection, where we are now as consumers, there is so much information about the vehicle itself that we can find on our own. And that's what, like you're saying, it's like if you can create that personal relationship, and now all of a sudden I'm looking at you as another human being who, you know, because a lot of times, you go into the car dealership and you look at the salesman and you just think, man, these people are just, ugh,
Yeah.
because of what has happened over the past, and just kind of that, for lack of a better term, that reputation that, of the used car salesman and that kind of thing. And I think that's where you have the ability with Facebook and all these other uh, technologies to really show who you are as a human being, as a person.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot more return on your time investment for that versus just sitting out and going, okay, here's the car.
Yeah. So this isn't new information. This isn't rocket science. Everyone has been doing this for 100 years. Your network is your net worth, and the old saw is not. It's not what you know. It's who you know. And the truth is, it's not even who you know anymore. It's who knows you. And here's the dirty little secret: they have to know you before they need you, because those leads coming in the door, just like you said, they 70% of the research happens before they ever contact a salesperson. They research everything on the line. So if they're a car buyer and they're in the market and they already know 3/4 of everything they need to know to get that car, and now they're coming in the door to see you, they don't like you. They don't like you. They don't know you, and they don't trust you. And you're the enemy. They're there to beat you at the game. All right, I've got all this information, and now they go in like Superman going into battle, like Batman putting on all this thing. They're going into battle because that's what they've been taught to do. I'm going into war because these people are trying to trick me. They're trying to get in my pocket. They're trying to take my money, and it's up to me to defend myself and beat them. Because if I don't beat them, they're going to beat me. So if you wait until they're the 2% there in the market, by the time you meet them, they're the enemy. Then you've got to convert them. You got to build that trust factor. You got to build all of this stuff, and you've got to get them to like you and trust you, and then you can start talking about the car. Well, what I want you to do is start making these friends, making these connections, and building your network before you need your network, because they're all car buyers. One day, they're all car buyers.
And that what you said there. I mean, from a sales perspective, there aren't many industries, products, things, however you want to look at it from that, whether it's B2C, B2B, there aren't many places where you have an audience that large.
Yeah.
That everybody's going to need it.
Everybody, right? Yeah. So everybody, you have to build your network before you need your network, and if that's the whole thing of the book, is that I want people to start thinking about this, about building this network and treating everyone as a car buyer, because and spending more time dealing with people that they know, with people who already know, like, and trust you, with people that you have a prior relationship, whether it's a social media relationship on Facebook, or whether you know them from church or school or sports, or whether they were sent by a referral, or whether you've done something with them before. But if you'll just spend more time dealing with people that you know, you're going to close more deals. Your closing ratio is going to go through the roof because you tenderize the meat. You're going to close more deals. You're going to close deals faster. It takes less time because you don't have to build the trust. Closing ratio is going to go up. You're going to make more money because they're not going to shop every penny out of the deal, because you were there first and got them with the experience that they needed, the vehicle that they needed. You made them feel safe, so they didn't have to shop around to save $100 off the MSRP of something. So if you will just spend more time dealing with people you already know, instead of trying to convert strangers into customers, you can convert friends into customers.
Do you think that, and this is something that I've been thinking about lately too, it's, in terms of where the salespeople are, obviously when there was the COVID hit, everybody was kind of working remotely. Do you think that would be pushback from um, dealer principals, GMs, et cetera, that say, well, no, you've got to be here I say the office, but in the dealership, you've got to, that's where all the work is done, versus thinking a little bit outside of the box and going, really, they're better off out at, over noon, when you have a lot of your networking meetings and various things like that. Go out to some of the lunches, go out to places and be seen, because if in my mind, as the dealership, it's helping build the personal brand of that salesperson, but also helping building the brand of the dealership itself. Um, and I feel like if you don't trust somebody enough to go out and do those things and to be able to get onto Facebook and LinkedIn and places like that and start cultivating and building relationships, if you don't trust them to do that, you probably shouldn't have hired them in the first place.
You talk. The show is the culture of value, and it's all about culture. And unfortunately, the culture of the car business doesn't really lend itself to this. And this is one of the things that we need to change, is because there is a huge amount of pushback from, not necessarily from dealer principals. It's from sales managers who this is all they've ever done. We're here working the leads. We're here. We got to cover the floor. We got to work the leads. We got to do this. And that's what the salesperson's there for, is to cover the floor. I got to have a warm body to work with this person when they walk in the door. And Fran Taylor, buddy of mine, Fran Taylor, sales trainer, he says there's always going to be more people outside the dealership than inside the dealership. Even on your biggest sales day, there's a million times more people outside the dealership. And they're all car buyers. So you mentioned the networking meetings. That's a huge thing. I go to a lot of networking meetings in Nashville. Host one here that I do on Zoom, and I've been trying to get salespeople to come to these for years. And I rarely, if ever, do I bump into a car salesperson there. And I look around the room, and there's 30 people sitting there. 30 people sitting there eating their soup and their salad and their club BLT, and they're all expecting everyone there to put a business card in their hand. They're all expecting a light sales pitch from everyone. They're looking for connections, and they all drove a car to get there. Every single one of them drove a car to get there. Why there's not a salesperson in every one of those, car salesperson, I have no idea. But Nathan Hayes, who's over in Jefferson City, Missouri, he was on my podcast, the Get You Some radio show. And he told me he got into the car business because he was doing a lot of networking after he graduated from college. He was doing a lot of networking, and looking for his next step. What am I going to be when I grow up? And he was going to these networking meetings, and someone talked to him about the idea of selling cars. And at first he kind of blew it off. He said, because he had this poor idea of car salespeople, just like most people do. But he started looking around. He'd go to these meetings, and every time he'd go to a meeting, there were half a dozen real estate agents. There were half a dozen mortgage brokers, more financial planners than you could shake a stick at, and not a single car salesperson. Do what?
I said in printing companies.
Oh, in printing companies, yeah, they're all there. But there's not a car salesperson. And he started looking around and said, "This is a target-rich environment. I'm going to do this," and that's what he's been doing.
Well, and you're right, because I think back to just the various there. I can't think of a time that I've gone someplace that is not the dealership or something car industry specific, that you actually see anybody from there. And maybe it's because that they're all, again, on the showroom floor, so to speak, or at the dealership. And this is something that I've been looking at too, is people. And right now, one of the biggest things for us, and why you start seeing a lot of the, with the digital retailing and all of those kind of things, is our time is so precious. And, to take the time to go to the dealership and all of those things, you can be in for several hours at a time. Plus,
which is another problem, by the way. That's a whole nother something.
And there's where I think is like, well, from a sales perspective, man, wouldn't it be best, because think about all the places and all the other industries that they come to you. It's like, hey, like you said, financial planners and those kind of, hey, can you come over and meet me at the house, or can we grab a cup of coffee and go over what you've got going? That I think there might be something there from a dealer perspective. It's like to get those guys out and being able to do that and come meet your customers where they are, versus having to have them come to you, because it saves them time. And you look like the hero just because of the fact that you were willing to go, I'll come to you. I'm not going to make you come to me. I'll come to you, and we'll be convenient on your time.
Yeah, the competition, your competition at the dealership isn't the dealership across the street. It isn't even the dealership across the country. Your competition is every other service and good provider that your clients deal with. And they're used to pressing a button on Amazon and toilet paper shows up every month. Bing, bang, boom. There it is right there on their desk. They're used to walking into Chick-fil-A and getting greeted with a smile. So that's your competition. Chick-fil-A and Starbucks and Amazon. Your competition are these people who have stepped into this modern culture and are moving fast. And in all the research, everything people hate about the car business, and there's a lot of stuff that people hate about car dealerships. The biggest thing is, why does it take so long to buy a car? And it takes here's why it takes so long. It takes so long because they don't know you, like you, and trust you. They're the reason it takes so long. Stickers quicker. If they walked in, slap money on the hood, and pay a sticker or 10,000 over sticker, whatever the going rate these days is, and they walked in and they don't want to negotiate, then it goes pretty fast. But they don't know you, like you, and trust you, so it takes a long time. So the most important thing that you can do for the long term is improve your customers' buying experience. If you give them a better experience, then they're going to tell more people and you're going to sell more cars. The biggest thing you can do to give your customers a better experience is to have a relationship with them before they walk in the door. If you got a relationship with them before they walk in the door, they don't have any of that anxiety. It goes 4 times faster. You can close the deal 4 times faster because they already know you, like you, and trust you, and they don't have to argue over every little thing that you're talking about. They just go, okay, my buddy Troy says this is the way it is. This must be the way it is. So if you can improve their experience by speeding up the process, by being their friend, there's a measurable component to this, that if you will just make more friends, you will sell more cars.
Well, and just as you brought something up there just a second ago, it got me to thinking too, because Chick-fil-A and all the other places that are doing these things, and everything is very customer focused about time and quality and experience and all of those things. They've set, the other industries have set that expectation for people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, well, it can be done in all these other industries. Why can't you do it? And again, if they would just think from that mindset and maybe move away a little bit and utilize this technology in a way that's more human, and do some of that, and really think about the people versus sales quotas, they would get a lot further along.
Just think about the numbers. If I refinanced my house a few years ago, and if they came to my house and we did it over the kitchen counter. If I can close a several $100,000 mortgage at my kitchen counter, why can't somebody bring me a $20,000 Honda Civic? It doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people that I have to go sit at a dealership 5 hours and talk to 6 different people and say the same thing over and over and over again until they get me to say what they want me to say. By then, I didn't like them when I walked in the door, and I sure don't like them now. We have that's the last part of the book, is we have to flip this switch and make it a people business again. We have to be concentrating on giving a great customer experience to every single customer every single time, making friends with every single customer every time, and staying in their lives every single time.
What do you think we can do and I hate using the word vendors, because that makes it sounds like you're just a trunk slammer, the same kind of thing as the used car sales guy, but I'll say a vendor partner. What do you think because again, we're coming from multiple angles, from a marketing perspective, from some of the technologies and things like that. What do you think we can do as a, we'll call it, an industry, to help those dealerships get from where they are to really recognizing the importance, not only from the individual salespeople, but the dealers themselves, the sales managers, like you talked about? How do we help them shift and step up to where we are now?
Well, we can put a copy of this book on every one of their desks. That would be my first step, Troy. That's what I would do. So, but the truth is, as individuals, we have limited control. We have a limited area of influence, and so changing the industry, changing the culture of the automotive business. Terry Lancaster sitting here in Nashville, Tennessee, he ain't going to do that. But I've got hundreds of friends in the car business, thousands of friends in the car business, actually, and I can change their culture a little bit at a time by doing the exact same things that I'm telling them to do. It's funny. I walk into when I'm training at dealerships, I get to the part where I start talking about, we talk about birthday cards and Christmas cards because we want to go in people's lives. And I'll be sitting there talking to the salespeople about, hey, use Facebook. So go in and send it, go out. Facebook every day is going to tell you who's got a birthday, and you can send them a little message. But that's great, but they're going to get swamped. What you want to do is you want to look about 2 weeks ahead of time and send them a birthday card, because they're not going to get a birthday card from anyone else. So if you send that to them before their birthday, and then the day of their birthday, you send them a video message. Hey, happy birthday, buddy. This is your friend in the car business. That's two connections. That's two neurons in the brain. That's more know, like, and trust. And when I get to that part, almost every time the general manager will step out of the room and go to his desk and open up his drawer off his wall and grab all the postcards that I've sent him over the last 2 or 3 years and come back and says, this is what Terry does. Terry's sending me, I can't forget Terry, because every time I turn around, there's a card from Terry and there's a message from Terry on Facebook, and he's staying active in my life. So the best thing I can do is to eat my own cooking, to do the things. And I get more business. I swear this is true. And it's crazy. And if you'd have told me this, when I was a younger man, I would have thought you were an idiot. And maybe this is why some of the salespeople look at me funny when I know this, but my biggest source of revenue is sending birthday cards to general managers of the dealerships. That's how I make a living. That's my job. Right. Because, they'll get the birthday card, and, after a few of them, one of them go, hey, Terry, let's talk about what you do and how we can get my salespeople to do what you do. So that's how I'm trying to change the business, one relationship at a time. And I tell salespeople, I see a lot of these salespeople, they get gung ho on it. They get gung ho and they're going Facebook, and they make it their mission. I'm going to change the concept of the automotive industry. Well, bullshit. No, you're not. No, you ain't going to do nothing, because you got 300 friends on Facebook. What you can do is change 300 opinions of people in your life. So concentrate on changing the people in your life, infecting them with your enthusiasm, whether it's, and then you start changing the opinions. And as vendors, that's all we can do is find out who we have any circle of influence with and infect them with our enthusiasm.
And I think one key too is to have that mindset of, just like you were talking, you send the birthday cards, you do these things, and it takes some time. Like you said, you've got to do that before the need arises, because it's not something that's going to happen with a snap of a finger that, okay, we've known each other now for a week.
Yeah, right.
We're going to all of a sudden going to do these things. So I think that's the key is, and I heard somebody say the other day, it's like, when's the best time to plant a mature tree? 40 years ago.
Right.
And I think that's the key that people have to start thinking is you've got to cultivate these things. That doesn't mean you just stop, with the leads that are coming in, that you address them and do the things you need to do, but you've got to be starting to develop and cultivate those relationships now for things that may not happen until the end of next year. I mean, it may take a year before that everything, all of the timing and just everything is right.
Right.
But that can take then and this is what I found, as having an agency, and the clients that seem where you had to really, work and build that relationship and do things right, that may took 12, 15, 18 months. But when they were ready, and because of the fact that you had built that trust and helped provide them with value all along the way of just different ideas and things that could help them, those people stick with you.
Yeah.
And, so all the money and time and effort that you put into it, it will pay off in the long run. And it's not just, like you said, not just that one person, that one time, but now you've got a lifetime trust built if you do everything right, and make sure that you're honest and everything that you do and genuine. Yeah. And now you've really got, it's an investment. It's not I would say it's not a vending machine. You're not going to stick $1 in and get your prize out, so to speak. That you've just got to be able to be willing to do things the right way. But if you do it the right way, it'll pay off in the long run.
You said that fable about the best time to plant a tree is 40 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree
now,
right now. right now. So the only way to do it is to do it. And what we have to do is start thinking less about the transactional value of that relationship.
Absolutely.
And start thinking about the lifetime value of that relationship. So okay, let's say I've got to put 18 months in to building a relationship with some person that I met at a BNI meeting. I put 18 months into building this relationship with them, and they turn around and buy a car. Okay, I've made several hundred, maybe a couple of $1,000 on that. But then their spouse is going to buy a car pretty soon. Some other people in their family are going to buy a car pretty soon, and they're going to trade that car every 6 years on average. So if you start looking at each transaction as just the first ripple in the pond, that one person that, well, why would I want to work with somebody for a year and then not sell them a car? Because they could build you a house over a lifetime. My dentist lives in about a $3 million house. And every time I drive by there, I go, man, because I got me, my wife, and my 3 daughters, and we've been going to see this same dentist for 20 years. And my wife was going to this dentist when she was a kid. So she's been going to this dentist for 50 years. Man, I paid for that dude's house. A good chunk of it, paid for his vacations, the lifetime value, and it's all cumulative. We just have to get out of the transactional right now mindset.
And I think that's the key that I always share is you got to get away from the transaction. If everything is transactional and there is no lifetime value, no relationship built, I always say the relational element is so important. And that's what looking at, reading the book, that's what I saw. And then it's like, okay, here's what you've got to, here's the importance, here's the foundation, here's what you've got to do. And then you give the way to do it. So there's a lot, and that's why I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. We've got to get this, more people to see this, and because it really is simple if you just stop and look at it. And like I said, you've really simplified things here to me that it's like, this is a really easy way to get going and do the things that you need to do to be super successful.
Yeah, it's just about getting started. The easiest thing, chapter 3 on the book is the drop dead, is the low hanging fruit. I call it the layup of social selling. Is if after you've let everybody who you know that you sell cars, make sure everybody knows where you work, and after you've started making more friends so you can sell more cars, make a deliberate effort to make this connection on social media with every other human being. So why do I post? That's the big question I get. Why do I post? And so for a lot of people who don't want to get out and walk around videos or do all kind of stuff, the simplest, easiest way to remind people that they've got a friend in the car business is when you get to the dealership every morning, to check in at the dealership. If you'll just make a little post, talk about something cute, maybe put a picture on there, whatever you want to talk about, but you just push that little check-in button. Then every time you do that, it's going to say, Terry Lancaster at Joe Bob's Ford. And you don't even have to be talking about Joe Bob's Ford. You can be talking about the pizza you're having for lunch. Man, this sure is some good pizza. Terry Lancaster at Joe Bob's Ford. And it's a general reminder to all of your people, all of your connections that you're adding, that they've got a friend in the car business, and you work at Joe Bob's Ford, and you're not ashamed that you work at Joe Bob's Ford, and you don't mind telling people that you work at Joe Bob's Ford. And on average, people check their phones 150 times a day. It's the first thing they look at when their feet hit the floor in the morning. It's the last thing they look at before their head hits the pillow at night. And if you'll just once a day put your name right beside the name of your dealership and check in, that's easy. That's layup. There's no reason everyone can't do that. You don't have to know how to edit video. You don't have to be a great photographer. You don't have to be insanely handsome like you and I are, Troy. You don't have to do nothing. You just have to push that button, check in at the dealership, and let them know that they got a friend in the car business.
I think what that boils down to, as you said, it's just be human.
Yeah, just be human. Just being you is your superpower. I mean. So we're spending all this time, and the technology is changing it. And I've been looking at this for the last 6 or 7 years. Like, there's a war going on. There's a war going on between the dealerships and the salespeople and the manufacturers and the large vendors who are there mainly to serve the manufacturers. And they look at all this technology. That's a way to squeeze the dealers and the salespeople out of the process. And now with COVID, we're going to everyone's having to order their cars, 6 months out. So that's another step that's removing the dealership from the physical process. And if you're not taking an active, engaged step to stay in the middle of the process, then all of these robots, they're squeezing your margins. They're going to squeeze your job out. And if you want to be in this job for the long term, you have to do the one thing that the robots can't do, the one thing that Madison Avenue won't do, and the one thing that Silicon Valley is perfectly incapable of doing, and that's be a real live human being.
Amen.
And you just got to be a real live human being, make more friends.
You know what? I think that is the perfect way that we've encapsulated the entire, what about 50 minutes that we've been here? We've encapsulated it all in
yeah, just that. Be more human.
Well, Terry, I really appreciate your time. And like I said, I want to make sure I will, share a link to the book, because I think this is something that people should read. Like I said, it's an easy read, so you don't have an excuse of, well, it's going to take too long, I don't have time. Put an hour. If you're a slow reader, hey, 2 or 3 or what, like I said, and come back and read it, and then look at those things and then take action on them. And it's like I said, there's so many things that you've got from an actions, items perspective. Get your notepad out and put some things in place that you can start, because once you're done here, there are things you can do immediately to start improving your sales.
Take 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes, read one chapter. Take 15 minutes, read one chapter.
It doesn't have to be all at once.
Yeah, take 15 minutes, read one chapter, do the action step for that. Do it again tomorrow, do it again Thursday, do it again Friday, do it every day until you can't not do it. Then read you another chapter. Read another 15 minutes there and start doing that thing.
Read it and then live it.
Yeah. You got to do the thing. Talking about it, don't feed the bulldog.
That is correct. Well, again, thank you for being a guest with us. I really enjoyed it, and I think everybody's going to get a lot out of this, and look forward to seeing you in person. Like I said, I will try to do exactly what we talked about here and stay in touch and develop that relationship. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, please feel free to just give me a holler and let me know.
You bet, Troy. I appreciate you, brother.
All right, man. Take care, Terry.